I'm very shy. I don't know why, but I am. But I was born in Chicago. We always lived in a home, in a building, one of the family buildings. I'm the daughter of a very successful businessman and realtor. And I worked side by side with him in our stores, helping him empty the garbage, everything. I had to do that from the time I was in nursery school. Everybody had to work in our house. Then my parents cut the umbilical cord and had a home built out in the suburbs. I hated it. In the summer, my parents sent us off to Michigan on my grandmother's farm because my grandparents had 2 homes, one in Michigan, one in Chicago. I love the farm. I love the animals. I had a pet pig named Fannie Mae. I used to walk her down the country road with a ribbon on, and the people would laugh at me and call me City Slicker or something like that. And I didn't care. How did I become a journalist? I began writing in grade school, and in high school in my senior year, we had like 15 minutes to write something, and I wrote something that God gave to me, and the teacher made me read it, and after I read it, everyone stood and applauded, and I thought, they're crazy. What I wrote came true 3 years later. At 21, I married the love of my life, and at 21, I was a widow. I lost my husband on a honeymoon. He was killed, and he had just bought me this huge house because we were just supposed to honeymoon in Michigan, not far from my grandmother's house, and live in Israel for the rest of our lives. God had a different plan. So I came back home, went back to school, and I went to Roosevelt, got my degree, but while I was at Roosevelt, we had to do like a couple of days internship at the now defunct Daily newspaper. And so we had to rip off the stories. I ripped off this one story, and it was really good, I thought. It was about a black man who had been shot. And my teacher said, this is not news. And I said, why not? Because it's black. And I went, I don't understand, because we were not raised around racism. So I just put it up in the air, and I watched it go down in the basket. And it seemed like forever getting to the bottom. And I was thinking, that's someone's child. That's some mother's son. And I made up my mind then I would never work for the white press. And I began working at WSSD Radio, my first job. And I became a on-air personality. I did the news every hour. I did a weekly talk show. And then I started taking my stories from my talk show, and I wrote for the South Shore Scene newspaper. That's where I met Harold Washington, Newhouse, everybody there. And I caught the eye of the defender, and I began working there. But working with the quotation marks, because for 5.5 months, I had to pay myself to work there. Because they wanted to see how the community would react to someone with a name like Chief of Strasburg. And I never could find out who that prejudiced person was, but anyway, after that, I worked for 23.5 years. Johnson had me do his politics, and 22.5 years I was stationed at the City Hall press room. And it was there one day, there was a protest mark. I don't know if you were there or not, but this Hispanic guy, they call him a white Hispanic, lieutenant, threw me over a chair with a medal, and it hit my stomach. I had to go to the hospital. Mayor Daley was very angry that the news picked that story up, and all the reporters were waiting for me at Northwestern. I went out the back door, but Mayor Daley was very angry that they showed that. So I've been in some pretty bad situations. One time I was at the I.W. Wells development, and someone called and said, we have squatters there, come and check it out. Brought my photographer, and all of a sudden I was surrounded by about 20 gangbangers. Those were the El Rookets. And I thought, my God, how am I going to get out of it? Because my photographer ran, and he left me there. God got me out of that. Another time, the Blackstone Rangers wanted me to interview them. I brought my photographer. Then it was Brian Jackson, and they wouldn't let him in. They let me in only. and they had windows with steel and steel bolts, and I thought, I cannot show any fear. I got the interview and got out of that. So I can tell a dozen stories like that, but I would do it all over again. I would do it all over again. And I left the Defender April 30th, 2004 to work for the state. I worked for the county. 2 years out of high school, I worked for the city. So I'm back writing for the Crusader, not the Defender, Mark. And sometimes I write for the Defender, but they want me only to write for them. So I hope you do support the Crusader newspaper. I also am editor-in-chief of the 316 magazine. So I hope you support that as well. And I'm producer and talk show host for the Bob Shaw Show on WVON. And I still have my talk show on the PCC network for 23 years. So I just want you to support black businesses because I am the granddaughter of a businessman, and I know what it means to support black businesses. So thank you, Mark.